Peace, y'all, and welcome back to another tea time. It's your girl Divine Destiny with the vibes. You already know what you're sipping on. I am sipping on a women's herbal blend. It has like sage and raspberry leaf tea and lavender. I put a little peppermint in there, a little cinnamon, a little ginger, a little honey. The girlies who get it, okay? Grab your tea, grab your water, whatever it is, your snack, okay, whatever it is you need to vibe with me today, because we're gonna jump right into today's tea time. And today we're talking about ego death. So I feel like that's a very saturated topic. You hear about ego deaths all the time, but like, what is it actually? So we're gonna dive into that today. Before we get all into it, right? What is an ego? Definition of ego, got my notes, okay, if you see me looking deal. The definition of the ego is the unobserved mind that controls our life. And the purpose of our ego is to help people make decisions and balance their needs with reality. It is responsible for self-preservation and keeping people safe, right? So when people say ego death, like, kill the ego, like, we don't really want to do that, because like, you kind of need it, right? Like, we were brought here into this earthly plane with an ego because it keeps us safe. So don't kill the ego. Just recognize that certain parts of your ego are trained to keep you in a box, right? So what's familiar to you, what you're comfortable with, right? What's normal to you is what your ego considers safe. Anything outside of that box, your ego is like, I don't know about this, feeling a little uncomfortable, shit feeling a little shaky. I don't know how I feel about this, right? That's your little ego in the back of your mind when you are trying to jump into something new or try something different. Your ego, if anything is different, anything is unfamiliar, anything is new, your ego is that little voice in the back of your head that's like, you sure about this? I don't know about this, right? So I think that a big part of this is recognizing when your ego is actually trying to keep you safe in like actual unsafe situations, and when your ego is trying to hold you from jumping into new, into different, into more, into better, because it's just unfamiliar and unsure. And then knowing that it's okay to push past your ego, it's okay to push past your comfort zone, it's okay to push that envelope, push that box of your ego every once in a while, right? So let's dive into it, right? Because we talking about like growth and transformation and like trying new things and stepping out of yourself and your usual day-to-day routine. Growth means that you are regularly allowing old versions of yourself to fall away, to shed, to die away, right? And that's what the ego death is, right? It is a state of complete loss of self-identity, transformation of your psyche. With that being said, right, that can happen to anybody at any time, right? You can meet somebody on the street and have a conversation and they give you a piece of information that is not in alignment with what you know to be true, but it is a truth. And that can send you through an ego death, like, dang, I had never thought of the world like this. I've never seen the world from this angle. And your ego can feel triggered, right? Because it's uncomfortable with the knowledge that it has gained, with the expansion that it is now stepping into. And that is you allowing your ego to fall away, right? So you can shed and have ego deaths on like minute scale, or you can shed and have an ego death on like I transformed and I'm a whole different person, okay? Take me for example, okay? I've had many of ego deaths my entire life, and recognizing like the things we go through in life, the programming that is given to us through our parents, right? The religion that we are born into, or the ideologies that we are born into, the morals that we're born into. the morals that we're born into, right? All of these things are programmed within us before we are even old enough to, or conscious enough to like make our own choices. So like there are certain parts of ourselves that are given to us from a very young age. Going to school, right? They program you heavy, right? Just having certain friend groups and certain working in certain places, being around certain people and energies and having certain experience can program and add to just your being and your thought form and how you process the world around you, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean that that is who you are on a core level. It just means that that is what you have taken in, and that is the film in which you process the world, right? So an ego death means that certain parts of that programming, certain parts of that film, certain parts of what you have been taught are starting to shed away based off of maybe things that you're studying or learning or experiencing now as an adult in your life, right? So in shedding these parts of yourself, you're making room for your true self, right? Like, imagine, oh, okay, here's a very good example, right? A rose bush. A rose bush is like you have to cut the flowers so better flowers can grow, right? So in the grooming and like cutting process, trimming process, you trim off the not the best flowers, or you know, it's the okay flowers. That's a good flower, right? But it's not serving the tree, and we can have better flowers, we can have better rose buds, right? So you cut off the ones that are just okay, and as you do that, you allow space for new ones to bloom, and these new ones that bloom are better, just better, okay? Just more beautiful, more full, more colorful, more whole. And the same goes for us, right? So if we are that rose bush and the blossoms, the blooms of flowers that are just okay are kind of like the external parts of self that have been programmed into us, the things we picked up along the way in life. And when we begin to shed those parts of ourselves, we allow space for our truest self, our most inner self, to shine and to blossom and to bloom, right? Like, I don't know if you've read The Four Agreements. If you haven't, it's a really good book. You should read it. It's a very good read. It's easy read as well. But in The Four Agreements, it just discusses how either subconsciously or consciously, when we agree to something, we are taking that on as a truth, right? We are taking that on as a contract for ourselves until we choose to break that contract, right? So that contract could be anything, right? That could be as simple as somebody talking down on you as a kid. You know what I mean? Like there are situations where people say to that kid, like, oh, here's two examples. You feed life into one kid. Oh, you're so smart. You're so intelligent. You're so strong. That's the truth and the reality that that child takes on. So that's what that child begins to blossom as, right? Or on the other hand, if you looked at a child and you said, oh, you're not smart, you're not strong, that's a truth that that child is going to take on. And that is what's going to blossom. So until that child grows up and decides, like, you know what? F with them people said, I am smart, I am strong, and starts to recreate that contract for themselves, they have to cut those blooms, cut those blossoms, cut those unwanted flowers, roses that are growing from them that have been sprouted because of what other people have put onto them. Then they can begin to thrive and shine in their most authentic self, which is the same thing we're doing, right? So it's not like you want to release your ego and hold, because your ego is still a part of yourself and it's still a true part of yourself. You just have to recognize what parts of the ego are actually true to you, what parts of the ego have been programmed into you, right? And then be okay with releasing those parts and recognize that when you release those parts and when you start to step out of those comfort zones, when you begin to challenge those contracts and agreements that you have consciously or subconsciously taken on for yourself, when you choose to step out of those, please recognize that your ego is going to fight you on it. Okay, it's called an ego death for a reason. This shit is not cute, nor is it easy. And depending on the contract or the agreement that you are trying to shed, the part of yourself, the personality, the ideology, the habit, the belief, the addiction, the behavior, whatever it is for yourself that you are trying to shed to become better, new, or different version of you, that part of you is very comfortable where it is. So it's going to put up a fight for it to be released and to change, right? Which is why, I mean, like, change is uncomfortable for anybody, but that little voice inside your head, that ego, 1111 on my clock as I'm saying this, that little voice inside your head, very uncomfortable with change, because as we mentioned in the beginning, your ego is here to keep you safe and believes that change in any way is unsafe. And we logically know that that is not true, which is why we, as the spiritual being and vessel that we are here incarnated as, have the power to step out of that ego, to step beyond that ego, and really jump into 11:44 on my timer, and really jump into new and different and better, right? It takes me back to, if you have been tuning in with us, it takes me back to the conversation of the phoenix rising, and just recognizing that you have to be willing to allow that place of familiarity, 12:12 on my timer, to burn down, right? 12:21 past, you have to allow that place of familiarity to burn down. You have to realize that you are the ignition. You gotta burn it down yourself. You have to be willing to step past that place of comfort. You have to be willing to step out of what it is that you know, what it is that you've grown up in, right? So that you can really become who it is that you're feeling called to become. Hold on, I gotta give it to you like I wrote it. I said, you ignite yourself. You are the flame. And your desires to know, to do, and to be more or different are the gas, right? So your desire for growth, for elevation, for change is the gas you need to get that flame going. But you have to be willing to ignite it, because you are the flame. You know what I'm saying? Like, your dreams and goals and desires could be the gas all you want. We could throw gas all up on that familiarity, all up on that comfort zone, you feel me? But if there is never any spark, we just sitting in a just a, you know what I'm saying, okay? If you don't allow yourself to be that spark, be that change, like, your desires and dreams and goals could sit here in your mind forever. But if you don't take the first step to create that change, to be that spark, to ignite that familiar and comfortable place and allow it to just burn all the way down, so that you can create and build anew, or just completely fly away and jump into a different situation or experience, self, timeline, whatever it is for you, then what are we really doing here, right? The only thing that is standing in the way of you and the reality it is that you want to see, the reality is that you feel in your heart with your whole being, the only thing standing in the way of the reality that you literally see in your dream state is you choosing to be the ignition. Is your ability to light that nest up. And that nest, if you haven't tuned into the Phoenix Rising tea time, I definitely would recommend that. I'll put that at the end of this video. But if you haven't tuned into that, jump into it so that you can know what we're talking about here. But for those who don't, the nest is your comfort zone, right? The nest is that place of familiarity. The nest is what you have built, what you have known up until this point, right? And then at some point, because life is ever changing and we are ever changing and growing and evolving, you're going to want to do more. You're going to want to be more. You're going to explore and learn and change and grow. And that's what we're supposed to be here doing. But that ego is going to be in the back of your mind like, are you sure? Are you sure you want to do that? And the answer is yes. Okay? Yes, you want to do that. Yes, you want to take that leap of faith. Yes, you want to try that new thing. Yes, you want to jump into whatever this new experience, situation, relationship is. If it feels good and you're feeling called in your whole soul and heart to do it, then do it. Even if that little voice in the back of your head is just like chirping and cheeping on. That little voice in the back of your head does not control you, okay? You are in control of your ego. 1616 on my timer as I say that. You have to be willing to let go of what you thought you know. The version of yourself you think you know, what you think you know about the world, what you think you know about yourself, right? You have to be willing to allow those, what you think you know, to be challenged. And then you have to be willing to push past the level of discomfort that occurs to learn, to grow, to be, and to build more within yourself, right? Definitely recognizing that ego death sounds scarier than it is, and I feel like that's really what I'm here to express, right? Like, we call it an ego death and it sounds like this big thing, and don't get me wrong, like, the definition of ego death is a state of complete loss of self-identity. That's some dramatic shit. Not gonna lie. And depending on how far, how big this part of you you're shedding, right? The loss of self-identity can really be tumultuous. And if you don't ground yourself in reality, if you don't ground yourself in your own truth, in your own self, right, then it is easy to get lost in the sauce of an ego death, right? It's easy to get lost in that discomfort. And that's why a lot of people find themselves like, oh, I want to change, I want to grow, and then they don't, because once they step past that line of knowing and familiarity into the uncomfortable and the unknown, now you're swimming with the sharks. You in the deep end. I don't really want to go off the deep end, but you do. Your ego is the one in the back, like, I don't think we want to go off the deep end, but you do. Your spirit is calling you to go off the deep end. Your ego is telling you that look like a far drop. And your spirit is saying, but we can make it. Matter of fact, we can fly. But you won't know you can fly unless you step off that edge and take that leap. Try that new thing. Jump into this new experience, new situation. Say hi to that new person, you know, whatever it might be for you. It is okay and absolutely necessary to be uncomfortable in life. And being uncomfortable does not mean that you are not safe. It just means that you're probably in a new space. You're probably doing something that you're not used to. You stepped into the unknown, and let me be the first to tell you, it is a beautiful place to be. Because the unknown is infinite possibilities. There's so much to manifest that can be birthed through the unknown, right? If you sit in familiarity, that word is crazy. If you're sitting in familiarity, then it like, there is no growth, there is no evolution, and there is no change. And we as human beings crave growth. We crave evolution. We crave change. But then there's also that part of you in the back of your head that's going to tell you don't do it. So who are you going to listen to? Your spirit, 2020 on my clock. Your spirit, who is trying to guide you into your highest, best self, purpose, and good? Or are you going to listen to that little voice in the back of your head that's trying to keep you still and stagnant and stuck in what you deem as safe, what it deems as safe, not even you personally, right? Recognizing that you and your ego you are separate from your ego, right? You are not the thoughts in your mind. You are the soul experiencing, the soul that is calling to grow and to evolve and to change and to blossom into that beautiful rose bush, okay? The most beautiful rose bush that you can be. But to do that, you have to be willing to cut off certain parts. That's the message, man. I'm not gonna lie to you, doing these tea times really has me feeling like Spirit is using me as a guide to just like that friend that's like, I'm gonna hold your hand and we're gonna walk to the very edge of this beach. And we're just gonna start by putting a toe in the water. Like, you don't even have to go too fast, too far. You know what I mean? We're just gonna, because the beach, like the sand is the familiar, the known, the safe part, right? You can see what's happening on the sand. You know what's going on right here. When you get into that water, the depths, you don't know what's in there. You don't know what's going on in there. But it is very vast ocean of opportunity on a spiritual level that you are being encouraged to jump into at this time, right? Now is the time to do the thing, jump into it, make the motion, start anew, right? And that's why Spirit is using me as a guide right now to encourage you to take that leap of faith, try that new thing, and not to allow your ego to hold you back from evolving and growing and expanding. Not to keep you in that space of familiarity, because familiar doesn't necessarily mean comfortable. It just means your ego feels safe here, even though your spirit internally is so much friction internally because of this space. You're no longer comfortable here because you've outgrown it. So you're going to sit in this place that you become too big for, or are you going to jump into this vast ocean that is an abundant array of opportunities? Take my hand. Now let's take that leap of faith. Let's try that new thing. If your spirit is calling you to do it, I guarantee you it is going to help you move closer toward where it is you want to be going, who it is you're being called to become, what it is you want to be doing. But you have to be willing to step over the line of comfort. Step out of that mental box that your ego is keeping you in, and recognize that as long as you are grounded within your own being, within yourself, even the loss of self-identity, right? Because technically, if it could be lost, then it was not your truest self. It was just programming that has been thrown on you. And while it's familiar to you and it feels like a part of you because you've held on to it for so long, I guarantee you releasing it is going to feel so much better. That is the message, man. Take the leap of faith, do the thing, step out of your mind, stay divine. Until next time.